Hi, this is Josh from MYOB Enterprise Division. This video is going to be an introduction to contact lists in MYOB ExoBusiness and a quick look at how to set them up. Contact lists are a feature of the Exo CRM module. You can access them from the core ExoBusiness module, but they will always need a CRM license to do so. Contact lists are reusable lists of contacts that you can use for bulk communications or other operations that affect a group of contacts en masse. Now, if we look at a contact list here, you'll see that it's just that, a list of ExoBusiness contacts. While they look fairly simple, there are a variety of options around how you can set them up and maintain them. To create a new contact list, we go to the Setup menu and choose Set Up Contact Lists. This window is available from the Setup menu by default in Exo CRM. You can also add it to menus in the core module, but again this consumes a CRM license. To create a new list, we just click the New button. So here's a new empty list. There are a few properties here, a name and basic details. Let's just call this one New List. These flags over on the right affect the list's availability. If you untick this active box, then the list won't be available for selection elsewhere in the system. If you mark a list as private, it will only be available to the person specified as the owner here. Now this list type is an important one. It determines which contacts will be available when you start building the list. We'll be getting to that shortly. If you select Contact, then all contacts will be available. Otherwise you can restrict it to things like only those contacts who are associated with a company or a debtor, serviceable unit subscriptions, things like that. We'll just stick with the default setting for now. So once we click Save, we're ready to add contacts to our new list. I go back here, you'll see it's now appeared in the list. So now we're ready to add some contacts to the list. There are several different ways of doing this. You can add contacts to a list manually from the Contacts window. Just tick the boxes for the contacts you want to add. Then right-click and choose Selected Items, Add to Contact List. So we'll select our new one, select Enclosed, and they're added just like that. Now if we go back to our new list, we can see that the contacts we added appear here. Note how they're highlighted in green. This shows that they were added manually. You can also add and remove contacts manually from this window by using the toolbar buttons here. Now, as well as adding contacts manually, you can build the list according to a set of rules. You do this on the List Building Criteria tab. You can use the filter controls here to set up rules for which contacts you want to add to the list. So I'm going to add all contacts whose last name starts with a B, using the percentage sign as the wildcard character here. When I click Apply, all of the contacts that meet these filters appear in the list down here, and then I can use the toolbar buttons up here to add them to my list. So either select a few and click this one, or just click this one to add them all to the list. Now there are a couple of important points to note here. See how the manually added ones are still there. They're never affected by operations on the List Building tab. Once you add a contact manually, it can only be removed manually. Now another point to note is that if you go back here and run this again, now if I change it to all the contacts whose names start with A, if I rerun this criteria, add all of these ones, note that all the contacts whose first names start with B are no longer on the list. When I set a new set of criteria and apply them, it wipes out all the old contacts and adds the new ones that meet the new criteria. There are some more advanced options on the List Building tab, which you can use if you want to be more sophisticated about how you select your contacts. This SQL sub-tab shows the SQL statement that's used to set up the available filters in the section up here. You can edit this if you want, say if you want to remove some of the filtering options or perhaps add different ones. Now the final option for adding contacts is this manual SQL mode. Activating this removes all of the filtering options, as you can see here, and lets you enter a SQL query that directly specifies the contacts that you want to include in the list. So you can do things more sophisticated like entering a query to select all contacts who have purchased a certain product in the last few months. Now the good thing about creating a list using any of the methods on the List Building tab is that it makes the list dynamic. As I said before, manually added contacts are static. They only change if you go and change them. But you can rerun the list building criteria at any time to regenerate the list using those rules, which will catch any changes to contacts that may have happened since you last saved the list. Once your lists are set up, the place you're most likely to be using them is in campaign waves. When you create a new campaign, you can specify the lists that it applies to on the Contact Lists tab. So I can add a list. I'll add our default one that was already there, and I'll add our new one. Now, when I go to a communication wave, I can select something like the mail shop process, which asks for a target contact list. I'll select just our new one here, and this is now going to do a bulk email to all of the contacts in that list. Now when I go to process the list, you'll see it asks me if I want to refresh the contact changes. And so this is what I was talking about before. If I click yes, it will go back and rerun that query and update the list with any changes that might have been made. Now that doesn't include the ones that were manually added. As I said before, those ones will always be there until you choose to delete them yourself. So now we see the MailShop window opens and all of the contacts in my list are there. And that's it for our introduction to contact lists. Thanks for watching.